All right, everyone, how are we doing? It's Monday the morning. Good start. Monday morning, everyone. Didn't have a great sleep last night, guys. Made it half an hour into the game, and then my eyes were literally closing because it was like after midnight here, and I'd been out all day. Nothing to do with the performance because the performance was great. Anyway, got up this morning, watched the rest of the game. Not that anyone really cares, but that's just if I'm a little bit off things today, that's the reason. You guys will be on it though, I can tell. You're always on it. Tony, how are you?
I'm very well, Hamish. Indeed, buoyed by that performance again. Another decent result for Celtic, so all good.
Yes, Ryan.
All good. And in the next round of the cup, facing Falkirk, who had a tremendous result against Hearts the day before. So yeah, no real complaints, no injuries that we know of. Anyway, 3 goals. Unfortunately, Kasper Schmeichel conceded a goal, although I don't think he'll have too many complaints because it was a stunning header by the Hibs attacker. But yeah, certainly more positives than anything else. A really good start to the season, a consistent start to the season. So absolutely no complaints from here.
We're a joy to watch at the moment. Like I'm loving watching the team. The movement off the ball is brilliant. Some of the football we played yesterday, I just thought was brilliant, Tony.
Yeah, some of the intricate stuff was really good, wasn't it? You can get accused of overplaying, but I think Celtic are certainly been a lot more risky and trying stuff, and you can see there's lots of different triangles in and around the box, and when things don't come off fine, but fine well at some point it is going to come off and it'll all click. Somebody's getting a tanking. You'll say that right now. Somebody's going to be in the end of a hiding.
2 weeks' time, perhaps?
Well, I think that everybody was hoping for that scenario, but somebody will come a cropper against Celtic and they will score a right barrel load of goals. Myself and Ryan predicted yesterday. Ryan went 5, and I usually go 1 up or 1 down, so I went 6. But they could have easily scored that many yesterday. So I think, as you say, I think you're just loving what you're seeing, and everybody is pretty comfortable in their skin and in their roles in that football team, and that's emanating from the manager. He did tell them, I think Michael Stewart asked him yesterday in the Premier Sports interview after it, and said to him, "You weren't playing like that this time last year." And he said, "No, we weren't." And he said, 100%, Michael. He said, "But what I have done," he says, "it's the one thing that I have hopefully passed on to them, is that kind of ability on the ball and without the ball." He said, wanted to make sure that they understood, and he said, and it's that clarity and understanding. And I think everybody is. The message is clear, isn't it? And he's driving it home, and all of those players now know whether you're starting or whether you're coming on. You know your role within that team, and you know what you're being asked to do. So there's no real excuses for not turning it on, even this early in the season. And I think that's emanating from the manager. He's just shown clear leadership, both on and off the field.
The Premier Sports interview was quite interesting. He kind of let it slip. I thought that maybe last season some of the issues that we'd had, above all the injuries and the stuff we know about, was maybe the team were expecting things to be a lot different from Ange Postecoglou, whereas I think the point Rodgers was making, and to be honest, he made last season. Remember, he had that kind of off-the-record briefing that became on the record. We won't go into that though, but he was basically, his point there during that was that we're not actually too dissimilar from the Postecoglou team, the way we're playing, and you watch it now, and I mean, it's Brendan Rodgers' like team in terms of the way that they're playing at the moment. They're playing for him, but it's very similar to the previous manager, I think, and that's obviously a great thing. I noticed a thing when I was watching the game earlier, Ryan, and I put it online on my Twitter, but Greg Taylor running up the right wing from an attack, and I kind of had to, have a wee look at it and go, that's your left back running up the right wing. And people talk about Rodgers' football sometimes being a bit kind of disciplined and very methodical, but he's kind of letting the team roam and letting individual players roam, and it's working to great effect at the moment.
I'm glad that you brought Greg Taylor up, because I think he's been one of Celtic's best players 3 games in. I think he's been arguably top 2-3 players in every single game that he's played this season. he's not letting the fact that he's only got a year left in his deal deter him from putting in good performances for Celtic. I'd actually expect now at this point a deal to be agreed between Celtic and Greg Taylor, because he is really performing well. And he was allowed, I was watching this yesterday, he was allowing Callum McGregor to go forward and covering for him in that defensive midfield. When they were in possession of the ball, he doesn't need to play at left back. He could actually just roam into the centre. There was a couple of really good moments where he understands his role, he's comfortable in possession, and he can make that forward pass early doors. It then frees up Callum McGregor. He can go further forward. Then you get Hatate and O'Reilly, who in the first half and second half respectively were running the show. I thought Hatate was really good in the first half. Second half, Matt O'Reilly really came to the fore. If you can have that for two halves and the two facilitate each other in the way that they play the game, then there's not going to be many teams that are going to be able to stop or live with Celtic, to be honest, because they everything's happening in that midfield and overflowing it with with the fullbacks as well, particularly Greg Taylor, because Johnston's playing as more of a traditional right back, whereas Taylor's going inside. There's not too many bodies, but there's just enough to overflow the midfield, and it's absolutely brilliant to watch at the moment. Greg Taylor is, after what I would say is probably a difficult first season under Brendan Rodgers, because it wasn't him that signed him, it was Neil Lennon that signed him the season after. I think he's thriving now. I think he's went up a gear. Brendan Rodgers likes him. He likes him as a personality, and he likes him as a football player, and you can see that because he's thriving in this team at the moment. Whether or not Celtic go and buy a left back, and I still think they do, even just for competition for Greg Taylor, he's one of the standout players at the moment, and it's no surprise to see him doing so well. I think he was at least an 8 out of 10 yesterday. I thought everything that he did was pretty exemplary, to be honest.
I think we all feel that we want a left back and we need a left back in, Tony, but you can't really. Great timing. I'll throw it over to the Dugs. Greg Taylor, the point I was going to make, Greg Taylor, say what you want about us needing a left back, and I still feel that we need a left back. But Greg Taylor's playing incredibly well at the moment. He's been very, very impressive. I agree with you, Ryan. And as I say, he's given that freedom by Brendan Rodgers as well to play central midfield, to run up the right wing. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous what he's doing, but he's popping up everywhere, and I think he's one of our better players.
Do you know what? I think you nailed it there about Brendan Rodgers saying that players were maybe expecting things to be different under his managership when he came in, but it's not, and I think he's letting a lot of the players do what comes naturally to them. And certainly Greg Taylor, that role that he played under Andrew, that inverted fullback role, I mean, he nailed it to a T, especially going forward. And, as Ryan said there, and yourself, he can pick out a pass because he was a midfielder, striker, originally converted into a kind of defender, wasn't he? So he knows what to do with the ball going forward. This is really doing my head in, honestly. Ryan, do you want to take the reins?
Yeah, happily. And I think it was Ange Postecoglou that really resurrected his Celtic career. Because I think everybody, or most people coming out of the COVID season, 2020-21 season, maybe thought that Greg Taylor was going to move on elsewhere, maybe to another Scottish club, maybe down south to the Championship. It was Ange Postecoglou that gave him that deal. I think it was in the autumn of 2021. And really put his faith in the two fullbacks, Tony Ralston as well. He did struggle last season, I think. He struggled to get back into that traditional role, but I think now Rodgers realises that you've got to play to his strengths. He's good in possession, he's good at passing the ball forwards and really being a nuisance. He is a complete nuisance. He's an auxiliary midfielder that comes in and just overflows that midfield. And yeah, I just thought he was absolutely brilliant yesterday. Noticeably good yesterday after another good performance against Hibs the week before. There's some performances that really, stand out and make you really, they pique your interest, and that was definitely one of them yesterday. I thought he was one of the standout players, although I could say the same for the player that he was covering in Callum McGregor. There's some games in which he really does stamp his authority with interceptions and good passes, and just everything that he does everything that he does on that pitch on that any given day is positive, and I thought that was the case yesterday too. I just thought there was so many good overall performances, and the fact that it's only 2-3 weeks into the season, they've still got a couple more gears to go up here. They've got Europe to contend with. They've got players to come in. Hopefully, there just seems to be a real air of positivity right now. compare that to last season, where I thought there was a bit of awkwardness surrounding Brendan Rodgers coming back to the club. Didn't help that they went out of the League Cup so early. So the fact that they eased through yesterday, they had a 10-15 minute spell where it was a wee bit shaky, but I never did think they were completely out of control in the game. They're not really letting any team have any control in any games thus far this season, which is great to see. And long may that continue, because it breeds well for success going forward.
I still think, though, that Taylor's enjoying a purple patch right now, but I think your gut instinct tells you still need better.
Yeah, definitely.
In that position. Call it an upgrade, call it what you like, but I don't like using words like that because I find they're disparaging towards footballers, but I don't like being disrespectful. But Taylor is playing out of his skin at the minute. But if you could find somebody who can come in and challenge him and possibly overtake him in that position and role, that we still should be targeting that player, because I feel it's an area that still needs strengthened. And I think Taylor is a fantastic footballer, and he'll still be a great squad player and somebody who I want to sign a new deal as well, because that's what he's capable of. But it doesn't alter the fact that I think we still need better in left back, and we still need better in centre back alongside Cameron Carter-Vickers. That's not going to go on scales bashing, because I thought he's been fine since the start of the season as well. But I still think the manager knows that those are the kind of positions that Celtic need to ramp up and get that quality in, that he needs to be. He reiterated again, he's not going into the Champions League to participate, he wants to compete. So if that's his MO, then we need players in those positions to go in and compete and not just participate. And that gave me hope that Celtic are going to get those players in before the end of the window. And also what he said on Friday as well, when he was talking about buying £6 million players that you can then sell for 30-40 million, stuff like that. So that gave me even greater hope that that's the kind of players that he's targeting, that extra bit of quality to say we're getting into this competition to compete, not just participate, as he said. That was his words yesterday. So I think he's all over it, and I think you will see maybe 2 players come in before the end of the window in those positions.
It's stating the obvious, but Champions League football is just such a different level to the opposition we faced yesterday. So we can't be looking at performances like yesterday and suddenly going, yeah, that'll be absolutely fine for the Champions League, because you look generally, and I thought it was really interesting, again, another thing Roger said on Friday when he was asked a question about, I think, Nicholas Kuhn and Adam Maeda, who haven't played in the Champions League yet, and the two things he said, pace and power, are what you need at Champions League level, and those two guys have it. I'm not sure Greg Taylor does. I really like Greg Taylor, and Greg Taylor's going to continue to be a really, really kind of good, important, stable player for Celtic. But I think Brendan Rodgers knows that you probably need a bit more power, a bit more pace, like we have with Alistair Johnson on the left-hand side. But that doesn't take away from what Greg Taylor's doing at the moment. Frank asking about his contract situation. Without knowing Frank, I don't know this, but I think once the transfer window shuts, you'll see some progress in that. I think the club are focused on the transfer stuff, and I don't know about you guys. I'm pretty certain that Greg Taylor will get a new deal. I've noticed some people thinking that he might be away at the end of the season. It just hasn't even crossed my mind that Greg Taylor wouldn't sign a new deal with Celtic.
Yeah, I think he'll sign a new deal. Also, these things do take time. At the end of the day, the player will have a valuation of what he thinks he's worth. The club will have that valuation, and then they've got to meet in the middle or agree on wages and extended terms. I think he's a very vocal part of the dressing room as well, and you can see that not just in the dressing room but on the field as well. He barks orders to people. He is a bit of a moaner on the pitch. You do notice that, especially in away games when you're close to the pitch. He does have a lot to say, but I think that's just the standards, and it's the standards that he's inherited since he's came to Celtic. Anything other than a win is unacceptable. So it's good that he's got those standards that he's pushing forwards into other players, and I can actually see that now coming off in other players too. Yesterday, again, while watching the game in person, you can see Hatate is actually telling other players where to move and where to pass the ball to. So for somebody like that, English isn't his first language. He's still getting to grips with that language, but it's such a cliche. But football, universal, etc. He's just telling other players what to do and where to go. And I just like that there's those stereotypical leaders on the pitch like Carter Vickers, Callum McGregor, maybe Alistair Johnson. We've also got other players stepping up and really maintaining the standards. And that's great because I think there's more than 2 or 3 leaders, maybe some surprising leaders in that dressing room that you probably wouldn't expect, but they're all taking turns to pull in the one direction, which is to get victories. And that's great to see personally.
Yeah, there's a great kind of synergy around the team at the moment, and the fans are really part of that as well. I just think it's really remarkable the difference in 6 months at Celtic Park, because we were not in a great place 6 months ago. And listen, Brendan Rodgers and the players, I think, deserve so much credit for turning that around, mainly at the end of last season, and we covered that extensively to win the 2 trophies, but we've really kicked on, I think, even from the end of last season, the way we've started this campaign. Listen, we've got much more to chat about. First of all, guys, I want to just stick that on screen. Ronnie, you want to tell us about this, because I believe we've not got long to go.
Absolutely, yeah, I'll do this. Well, this offer finishes at midnight tonight, so this is your last chance to get our best ever deal. It's a new season sale. Kick off the new season with a year of the Celtic Way for only £12 at www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. You've got analytical pieces, scouting pieces, opinion pieces, Q&A formatted, press conferences as well, which in my eyes and what I believe are really handy for hearing exactly what Brendan Rodgers has said in word format. If you want to skim through the questions to get to particular answers, it's there rather than skipping every 5 seconds on YouTube to get to the best bit, if you get me. So we've got them. Anything that you could look for with regard to Celtic-based journalism and Celtic-based content is on the website. So it's www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. £12 for 12 months. And that'll be you sorted for the year until around about the 19th, 20th of August the following season. So you'll have basically two transfer windows, the whole of the season, all of the Champions League campaign.
4 trophies.
4 trophies, hopefully, yeah. 5 if you count the Super Cup. But yeah, if you want to help us just that little bit extra or that little bit more, then please subscribe to the website, and we really do appreciate it. I'll be plugging it all day on social media if you've not already seen it on the Celtic Way and on my own personal account. So have a wee look out for that and subscribe if you can.
Daizen Maeda, Tony, he was excellent yesterday. 2 really well taken goals. I'm probably a little bit. I kind of looked at his second goal at first and thought it was maybe an untidy goal. I probably should give him more credit because he really did finish that well. Is he? I've come to the conclusion that I'm fine with Daizen Maeda being our 3rd choice striker. I think that's fine.
I think we're just fine with Daizen Maeda. What a consummate professional, and what just a guy that's hard to dislike in any shape or form. Just does what's asked of him. I've said before, he's a Forrest Gump. You don't know what you're going to get, but it doesn't matter because he's still universally loved. He's a popular guy in the dressing room. You know, the way he was smiling after he scored yesterday. The players just love it when he scores because they know and then he was speaking after it, wasn't he? And he got interviewed. And I think he was asked one question. He just said, "Yes, I enjoyed scoring the goals. I want to score goals the next game." You know, and he just makes you laugh. He's just his humour's infectious. Everything about him's just infectious. He's a cracking character, and I say it before. He has to be the most popular player in that dressing room. And to come from Japan and ingratiate yourself your way into a Celtic dressing room, fly thousands about that's some doing. And I just think that it doesn't matter. See if he does things that are wrong or people just go, it's Daizen, and he gets away with it, doesn't he? But the fact is, when it comes to when push comes to shove, he 9 times out of 10 he steps up to the plate. Right, you're playing centre forward this week. Fine, no bother. What do you want me to do? I'd like you to score goals. Right, okay. How quick do you want me to do that? 2 goals in 17 minutes, 2 cracking finishes, and then he runs through for the hat trick and sclaffs it, or takes a terrible touch, and you just wring your head and hands it. That's Daizen. So it's what you get with him, and he leads by example, because Brendan Rodgers made a great point yesterday about the playmaker was your centre forward because he was the one that was leading the counter pressing. So when you lost the ball, you look at that third goal. Kuhn gets the credit for charging down the goalkeeper, but it's Daizen Maeda that runs to your man and forces him to play it back to his goalkeeper under pressure. You know, the guy scored 2 goals. He could very, very well just say, you know, I've done my bit today. But the game was still at 2-1. Wouldn't say it was in a knife edge because Celtic were dominant. But, you know, he's still chasing players down and he's still contributing, and, you know, he can more or less claim an assist for that one for Kuhn because he's put the guy under so much pressure that the only ball back or the only outlet was the goalkeeper, and the Hibs defenders put his goalkeeper right under pressure. Kuhn's right on it. So I just love what Daizen Maeda brings. He brings an energy and he brings a happiness, doesn't he? He's one of the few, well, not few players, but you enjoy watching Daizen Maeda, whatever he does, because you just know you're going to get something from him. You know what I mean? And most of the time it's positive, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the good massively outweighs the bad in terms of Daizen Maeda. He's excellent, but I think the thing personally that I love about Maeda, in terms of, we all love Celtic players with quality, the players who would just make you fall in love with the game, like Nakamura, I think was the first ever one that kind of really happened with me at Celtic. Other people have Larsson and Moravcik, who was at the game on Saturday, and guys like that. But the thing that you want above all, to be honest, is players running their socks off and giving everything for the club. And Daizen Maeda just does that every single game, and that's a different thing that I just love watching about him. I love just watching a guy give his absolute all every single match for the club I support. And he does have quality at times. I think people actually underestimate the quality he has. Those finishes yesterday, the second one especially, were really good. But I'm looking at all the comments coming in, Ryan, and it's amusing because, like, there's not a negative been said about Maeda at all. Like, the Celtic support, I think, have come to a point where we absolutely adore this guy. I mean, he's almost like a cult Celtic hero at this stage.
I would go as far to say that already. Yeah.
And he's a huge part of what we do as well.
Yeah, he's so important because he's the standard bearer of the press. He starts the press with his movement, regardless if he's playing up front, which he was yesterday, or if he's playing at left wing, which is where he usually is. Shows that he can play both. And Brendan Rodgers defended him yesterday as well in his post-match press conference. You can tell that Brendan Rodgers absolutely adores him because he starts the press. He is the energy in the team. And other players will see that. They'll see how much he's willing to fight for the cause and run for the cause. And they'll go, they don't want to be embarrassed next to him. So then they'll go that extra mile. That can only be positive for the club going forward. I hope he stays at Celtic for as long as he wants, to be honest, for as long as his legs allow him, to be honest, because he's just that sort of player. He's a total, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, he's a total anomaly, if I can even say that, anomaly of a player. There was a point yesterday, I think it was the one that Tony was talking about when he was in for his hat-trick, and it's a terrible touch after a great headed touch to bring the ball down. And I just laughed because that's Daizen Maeda to a T. And people just take that. There's other players that maybe will do that and you'll get frustrated. But you know Maeda's going to run and he's going to continue to chase lost causes for the duration of the game. He got his 2 goals. He probably should have had 3 or 4 yesterday. But, you know, if he's keeping those goals for against Rangers and in the latter stages of the League Cup, Scottish Cup and Champions League, then I'll have absolutely no complaints. But as of this moment, he's probably the first name on the team sheet for me in terms of outfield players, out with Cal McGregor as the captain. If Daizen Maeda's fit, Daizen Maeda plays for Celtic at this moment in time.
Do you know what I love about him? See, when he's not on it, and sometimes he's not on it, but what he does do, see his work rate and his endeavour and his industry, everybody's going to say he wasn't maybe on it, but he gave us that. He chased back, he chased lost causes, he gave his energy, and he relies on that. And I think Daizen doesn't know what Daizen's going to turn up in any given game, but that's his fallback position, you know, because you've seen him go down the wing and hit wayward crosses. And you think, what are you doing? You know, that kind of stuff. But what he gives you everything. He's leaving it all out there in the park, and then if he can add goals to his armoury and assists, then he is the complete player. I'm still waiting for the complete Daizen Maeda performance. You know what I mean? And if he does, what a player you've got. What a 90 minutes you'll have in your hands. But he's always close in. He's always there or thereabouts. And that's why the manager loves him, because he does it for the team. He doesn't do it for himself. Everything's about the team, the work ethic. And he led by example yesterday, because he was, as Brendan Rodgers said, the press starts with him because he was playing so high up. And, and his manager said that he went through the coaches' instructions during the week, and he was just like, right, no bother. We know you're used to coming in from outside, inside. You're playing through the middle, just be direct. And the goal that he scored, his second goal, was a brilliant lofted pass from Kuhn.
Yeah.
Excellent. But he's still got to control that. He's still got to find off the defender. He's still got to find the tidy finish. And he did all of that, and there's your anomaly there, Ryan. He can do that, and then but 5 minutes later takes a great headed touch. He's in goal, and I don't know what happened with the next touch, But again, the three of us are laughing, and I think that's why we all love Daizen Maeda. But as you say, his work rate and his work ethic for that team is something that Brendan Rodgers admires and loves. And 60,000 supporters that congregate every other week at Celtic Park, they love it too. And everybody watching them from around the world, they just they think the world of him.
Yeah, there was a great moment yesterday, and I think it was only caught on the TV cameras. Daizen Maeda scores a goal. I don't know if it's his first or second goal, but they're all celebrating with the assister, who I think was Nicholas Kuhn. Daizen Maeda's the first one to stop celebrating. It's his own goal, and yet he's the first one that's trying to get to the halfway line to start playing again. That's just Maeda. Maeda's a workman. He's just going to graft his way to victories, and history is going to be incredibly kind to him once it's all said and done, because he is such a vital part of this team under two managers now, respectively. But the two managers can't be wrong in Postecoglou and Rodgers. They both know exactly what they're getting with Maeda, warts and all. But he just does the business.
I think that was goals 30-31 for Maeda yesterday, wasn't it? I'm sure I heard that in the commentary yesterday. I'd love him to get to 50 by the end of this season. That'd be great, wouldn't it?
I mean, it's not a horrendous output in terms of, he's only been at the club, what, is it 2.5 seasons? I mean, I know it's not a bad output considering he'd had a hell of a lot of assists in there as well. So I think he brings us a lot more than maybe we realise sometimes, but I think he's certainly getting to the point of being appreciated by the Celtic support, judging from all the comments coming in here anyway. I love Daizen Maeda. So we're through, guys. Quarter final, we'll face Falkirk at home. The other games, just out of interest, Aberdeen versus the Spartans. You'd expect Aberdeen to go through there. You get Motherwell, Dundee United, and Rangers Dundee are the other two games. So Falkirk are quite confident, as you said earlier, Ryan. They got a good win on Saturday, 2-0 against Hearts. I think they're 100% in the championship so far as well. So we're going to be playing quite a confident team. Clearly, it's a game we'd expect to win, though. Falkirk at home. So we'll look forward to that. Kyogo stuff I think is interesting. Kyogo didn't feature at all yesterday. He was left out. This is as a result of his kind of shoulder issue that he has that kind of flared up again last week at Easter Road. Quotes from Brendan Rodgers saying, I think he's had this for a long time, long before he came to Celtic. We just gave him that rest and we'll see how he is tomorrow. I believe it's something he's had in Japan where he's just managing a shoulder issue, and from time to time it gets a little bit irritable and a little bit sore. He could have surgery, but it takes him out for probably about 4 months. It's only him that can decide that. Seems very much like it's Kyogo who's putting off this surgery, just reading between the lines. And obviously it's only Kyogo that can decide to have the surgery. The club can't force him into it. And so for whatever reason he doesn't want to have this surgery. What's the thoughts on this? Should we find a way to convince Kyogo to have the surgery? Because I think the fear would be that if this flares up really badly and he was to have a really awkward fall or something like that, I think he could miss a lot longer than 4 months. So we're kind of dicing with death a little bit with this one. But as Brendan Rodgers said, it's up to Kyogo what happens here, really.
It's the elephant in the room, isn't it? Kyogo's shoulder. in terms of what Celtic are just now. I think it is the elephant in the room. It's the sort of unspoken thing that seems to be getting spoke about quite a bit in recent weeks, but it's always that ticking time bomb almost of is his shoulder going to go. I was speaking about it last week, and I'm surprised that not more defenders try and test his shoulder, because that could be a source of weakness for the player. 4 months out, you're hoping Celtic get the league finished by February or March so that he can go and get that surgery. By then, Daizen Maeda will be banging the goals in, but he's just so important. So do you take that risk? Do you allow him to play on and maybe it flares up and it gets even worse? Or do you just take the hit and take the 4 months out? He's too important to be missing out on games at the moment, even with the injury that he's been managing for years, it seems like. So it's a difficult one. I would have preferred it to have been sorted this summer. It was even getting spoke about last summer when Celtic were in Japan. I remember Brendan Rodgers made comments, and then Kyogo made comments about his shoulder as well. So it is a bit of an awkward situation between the two, because there's not been any resolution. A year later, it's still flaring up in games, and he has to go off, which isn't ideal. But thankfully, Celtic have a second striker that they can rely on, who coincidentally I didn't think was great yesterday, but it was his first appearance back, and I don't think anybody's going to be reading into that performance too much. It was probably just the adrenaline that was getting him through the game anyway, because he was making his return to the team. But having Maeda there should soften any blow that Kyogo has in terms of being out of games with that shoulder injury. You don't want to lose him for an extended amount of time. Kyogo's been the talisman for, what is that, 3-4 seasons now. You want him to stay that way, and 4 months without Kyogo seems unthinkable at this point in time.
As a repeat, Tony, I think the situation is that Kyogo doesn't want to have this surgery for whatever reason, so it's kind of a difficult one if that's the case, a difficult one to navigate.
It was particularly enlightening from Brendan when he said that he's had it since his playing days in Japan, and Ange will have known about it, and player obviously is aware of it, but there's clearly, it must be the player then that doesn't want to face 4 months out, because that's what they're saying, a minimum of 4 months, isn't it, with a shoulder injury, and it's fine saying it's manageable, but it's becoming more prevalent now with him, isn't it? And obviously he's getting older, and you always worry about Kyogo, because he's a fantastic footballer. What he brings to the team's excellent, and his goals return's been sensational since he signed. But whenever he goes down, that's your first thought: is his shoulder gone? And whenever somebody goes near him, is his shoulder gone? So and fair play to Kyogo for being able to play on with it, and very brave and showing a lot of strength in that. But it is an issue that has to be addressed, and the player has to get it seen to at some point, because it'll prolong his career as well. Japanese players are amazing in the fact that some of them play into their 40s. So I would suggest for Kyogo as well, if he wants another 10 years playing, then he has to get it sorted sooner rather than later. But it's an issue for Kyogo, the medics, and possibly Brendan Rodgers. But I think Brendan Rodgers has alluded to it a couple of times now, and I think, reading between the lines, I think Brendan Rodgers would like to see him get it done, wouldn't he? So possibly the player that's maybe holding that up and saying he can cope with it, and he can do with he can function without it. But I think that's a couple of times Brendan's brought it up, and he's enlightened you as to that it's not just something he's had since he's been a Celtic player. So when you're saying things like that, I think possibly the writing could be on the wall in terms of maybe going under the surgeon's knife and getting it seen to at some point. But if the player's happy to play on and he can cope with it, then I guess you discuss that moving forward. But I think yesterday was a kind of example of, he took him out of the firing line there, didn't he, to give him that extra chance to rest. And nobody wants to see him on the sidelines, because we all love him and love what he's brought to the club, and he wants 2 number ones in the number 9 position, Kyogo and Daizen Maeda being those 2 number ones in the number 9 jersey. So that's what I want. But for the benefit of everybody, I think he has to consider it now, doesn't he? Getting it seen to. He really has to come to some kind of decision on that one, for himself more than anything else.
it might be that the club have to get their medical people together and properly sit down and look at this. I mean, I say that, but they will have done that. The other point I would make, like, this isn't an issue that's affecting him every match. Like, it flares up from time to time, but we haven't spoken about this probably for a number of months. So it might just be Kyogo might be playing it down a little bit, and his thinking might just be, I get through, a few months and then maybe miss a couple of matches. That's better than going in for surgery. And let's not forget, surgery, wherever you have it in your body, there's always risks involved. My fear would be, having spoken to a few people, that he doesn't have this surgery and then he gets a really bad fall, and as I say, he could miss much longer than 4 months. I know you were kind of joking to an extent, Ryan, when you were saying, maybe end of the season, if the league's wrapped up, it could be the time to do it, but it might genuinely be if we do. And obviously we're going well ahead and we've got a lot of work to do, but if we do get to a point where we're looking really good for the league in that kind of early spring point, we're obviously probably going to be out of Europe at that stage, it may make sense to do what we did with Cameron Carter-Vickers and get it done at that stage. But Kyogo will need convinced. Anything else from the game? Anything else, guys? I see Daniel Kelly's apparently going to be going now. Tony, 400,000 I think they're talking about.
Yeah, is that fair enough?
500k, I think was the fee.
Sad to see that, to be honest, but as he's leaving and that's it. But he can't make his mark at Celtic. You see anything else? I think a couple of people have mentioned well, but wanted to also just touch on it. Thought Bernardo looked bright yesterday when he came on. Thought he had a really good cameo and looked to get involved, and it was the Bernardo that played in the Scottish Cup final, wasn't it? He came on and tried to make things happen, and a couple of times he tried to play in his big mate Ida like he did in the final, that kind of thing. So we look at behaviours and idiosyncrasies, but he looked in the mood, Bernardo. Thought he was just kind of making up for lost time, and I was quite happy with that. And I kind of thought, right, that's really good. I want to see more of that now. Whenever he comes on, I'd love to have seen him get more minutes. To be fair, it was a wee short and sweet performance from Bernardo, but you can understand why he's back, because there's something there. You can see it, and your eyes don't tell you lies.
It's that dribbling style that he's got. He's very, very good when he's got the ball at his feet. The ball kind of sticks to him when he starts to run with the ball. There's definitely something to work with there. Like Tony, I was very impressed with him. He caught my eye quite a few times when he got the ball and was trying to make things happen going forward. That's a great weapon to have with half an hour to go. Yes, he'll start games as the season goes on, but right now, if he's got 30 minutes in his legs, or less if he comes on with like 15 minutes to go, for that 15 minutes he's going to give you quality. But in terms of last things, I just think Nicholas Kuhn is on fire at the moment. That pass again, how many times has he done that pass with the outside of his boot? That's his trademark now.
He's turning into like a playmaker for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's 5 goal contributions in 3 games thus far this season. He's taken what he was doing in pre-season specifically against Manchester City, and then bringing that into domestic proceedings. If you can do that in Europe, then he's going to be one important player for Celtic this season. His numbers are looking good already. If he can learn when to release the ball, because sometimes I think he's a bit too greedy when he runs in, when he cuts in. There's a point where he can pass, and sometimes he takes that extra dribble when he doesn't need to. As soon as he gets that sorted and he realises when to pass and when to shoot, then he's going to get goals and assists every game. I know he is already, but he'll get more, because that the boy that was marking him yesterday was having an absolute torrid time, because he didn't know where he was going. He kept on changing it up every time he was on the ball. Is he looking to pass, or he cuts inside? A very, very exciting player to watch, and one of those players that's worth the admission fee, because he's just exciting.
Yeah, the early signs from Kuhn are great. We all hoped that he could bring that Manchester City pre-season form into the start of the domestic season. He has, and as I say, it's early days, but I think everybody's delighted that Kuhn has started the way he has. Just need him to continue, because wingers are traditionally inconsistent, aren't they? But he's been very consistent since the opening date, since pre-season. So keep it up, basically, Nicholas. That's all we ask for.
Yeah, I'm very excited about Mandy bringing up Bernardo and Matt O'Reilly looking similar. I think we've said that before. Something I'm really struggling with at the moment, it's not just those two. Nicholas Kuhn, to me, looks quite like O'Reilly out there. Greg Taylor was kind of longer hair. It's like a quiff he's got going now. Looks a bit like him as well. James Forrest can be a bit like that. So they're all wearing white boots as well. So it's a bit of a tough one at the moment, especially when they're all popping up in different areas. You've got Greg Taylor in the right wing, and you're like, is that O'Reilly? Oh no, it's Kuhn. Oh no, it's Greg Taylor. So
as well.
That's a big complaint, Brendan. Get players playing in their actual position, because I'm really struggling. I'm joking, of course. I'm absolutely loving watching the team at the moment. And St Mirren on Sunday, guys, I think that's going to be a really tough one. Got a feeling it was going to be a bit of a test for us, biggest test so far. So hopefully we can overcome that. And then we've got the small matter of a derby after that. But plenty of talking to be done, and we've not even mentioned transfers really, guys, so we'll need to pick that up from tomorrow onwards. Thanks everyone for tuning in, appreciate it as always, and we will catch up with you this time tomorrow. Speak to you then.